studio with us Piers Pottinger. Piers Pottinger ran Europe's largest public affairs company and advised countless prime ministers, including Mrs Thatcher. She was a remarkable performer at the dispatch box and always heard her own, but she could be quite tricky in some of these situations, Piers. What would be your advice to Rishi?
Well, what Margaret did was not put herself in situations where she was going to lose. She was an inspiring speaker and she was marvellous at connecting with the people on her terms. The trouble with Rishi is I think he still believes he connects with the people, and it's quite clear he doesn't. Is he foolhardy or brave to do this tonight? I think it's a bit of both. I think it's high risk, and I doubt he's going to come out of it terribly well. In my view, it's not Rishi Sunak, it's Rishi soon gone, because I'm afraid to say every ministry seems to be a mess. Nothing is getting done that needs to be getting done. It's very hard for him to list, other than Brexit, which he wasn't actually really involved in, to list any major achievement of the Conservatives over the last 13 years. I mean, Labour have got plenty to work with. He's also got a very bad week coming up with the by-elections, I fear, and then in a month's time, his last budget, or Jeremy Hunt's last budget, which having been talked up as an opportunity to do lots of populist tax cuts, is now being talked down by Jeremy Hunt, saying he hasn't got enough room. Now, if it's going to be a damp squib budget, and also they've got the mayoral election in London, which could have been a great opportunity to unseat the Labour mayor, Sadiq Khan, which they're not taking because they've put in a useless candidate without any real support. And I suspect and fear Sadiq will win. So the horizons are looking very grim and gloomy for Rishi. I think
but in his favour, because obviously you're very clear on where you stand on this, Peter.
Yes.
In his favour, at least he is now getting out. He is talking to your average person on the street.
Yeah.
Well, I actually don't think he's too bad at doing that. I think when he is talking to people, I think he's not a bad communicator. He's spending 3 days a week now, we understand, on the campaign trail. That's not a bad thing, being up close personal with the public.
The problem is, actually, I don't see how a Prime Minister can spend 3 days a week on the campaign trail. It doesn't make sense. The point is, it's not just domestically, it's internationally. I mean, Rishi is not an international statesman. He's not a recognised international figure. There was some stuff over the weekend I read about how so many people had no idea who Rishi Sunak was internationally. Now, even David Cameron and even Theresa May, people knew who they were internationally.
Isn't that partly because he has become Prime Minister really through the back door, if you like?
Yeah.
So there was never going to be
I mean,
wealth of publicity surrounding him.
Certainly, that's true. But look, in world terms, we're in critical situation. We've got wars going on around the world. We have very unsettled political situations in many countries, especially in the United States of America. And here's an opportunity for a Western leader to shine. And Rishi, I'm afraid to say, hasn't really done that. So, and also, when things are bad domestically, it's an old ploy for a leader to try and do stuff on the international stage, which he hasn't taken that up.
Well, and of course, he's sort of given that all to David Cameron to do it, of course.
Yes.
And Cameron is a natural. I had big issues with Cameron's premiership, but he always went and sounded the part, didn't he?
Yes, and also he's keen not to overshadow Rishi, and he's very, very conscious of that, I'm sure. But yes, I mean, look, I admire him for doing this tonight. I think he's going to find it appalling in terms of the level of intense questioning I suspect the good people of the North East will come up with. And also, the thing is, how's he going to win? What can he say? You know, he hasn't got anything to say. And for the rest of his term, as it is at the moment, he's got very little time to achieve anything.
And Rwanda, if they talk about immigration, Rwanda is the big policy. It's back in the House of Lords this week. It's going to be savaged within an inch of its life. There's a select committee report out today saying it won't work. It's all he's got, though.
I mean, the problem is when the government tries to do anything, they're stymied by, first of all, the cabal of left-wing civil servants in Whitehall who love to stir things up, as they did over defence at the weekend. The second thing is he hasn't got the ability and time to deliver any major policies. And the Lords, including our great friend the Archbishop of Canterbury, are going to stop the Rwanda bill or delay it long enough for it to fizzle out, which is what I fear will happen. And even though Keir Starmer doesn't seem to have any policies, or if he does, he drops them.
His last big one last week.
Yeah, I mean, on Tuesday he said, yes, 28 billion for the green economy, and 2 days later they've scrapped it. I mean, that shows you that, which is really worrying, what could come. This is an election for Starmer to lose coming up, and I think the election will be sooner rather than later, because everyone, so many backbench MPs are saying we've given up. The game's over.
So you think, because I've got money on it being May or June?
I think it will be May or June, I agree, yes. I think now, because soldiering on as a lame duck Prime Minister is not a very healthy thing. And to be fair to Rishi, who's an intelligent, decent person,
yes,
I think he will realise there's no point hanging on for the good of the country. I think he will have to call an election sooner rather than later. Maybe
it depends on what happens with this Rwanda bill as to the timing of the election.
And the thing is, we saw 128 people cross the channel at the weekend. If the Rwanda thing is still stuck in the summer, and they're crossing the channel in their hundreds, the migrants, that would be catastrophic politically.
But also tonight, I mean later on this week, if he has a bad evening tonight, then later on this week, don't forget he's doing this People's Forum during a week of two important by-elections. And in both cases, we're looking at majorities of, one of them's 18,000, one of them's 11,000. If he loses both of them, it's very grim. Now, you can always make the case that by-elections are not the same as a general election, but these are very important. And there's some very interesting things in them, including our good friend Sir Ed Davey. I wonder how many people still feel they can vote Lib Dem with him as leader.
Because of
the post office, yes. And you've got some very interesting ones. My favourite, actually, is the monster raving loony candidate in Wellingborough, who is one of his policies is to introduce the 99p coin, because it would help with change. I rather like that.
Well, I'm all in favour of cash.
And at least that's something that could happen. But I'm sorry, I'm obviously being silly there. But, Rishi's facing a dreadful week, a dreadful month, and not being able to do anything. I think he's in an impossible position.
That's all the more reason to tune in tonight.
Michael Gove says he's one of the most gifted leaders in the Western world.
Well, that's Michael Gove for you, isn't it?
Yeah, Michael would say that, of course,
yes.
The Levelling Up Secretary.
Yeah, and I'm sure as he says that, Michael is sharpening the knife he's about to put in his bag.
Oh.